This is Melanie Rudd, the founder of She Overcomes. She Overcomes educates and equips women to overcome the imposter syndrome while biohacking the cyclical planning, goal syncing, and lived experiences of the rhythms of our lives through our Becoming Bold Leaders 8-week training, as well as our goal syncing 4-week program. We help women optimize time, energy, creativity, and focus in business and in life. This is a recording from Metamorphosis, the She Overcomes Women's Conference. I hope you enjoy this podcast.
20 years, no matter what industry I've been in, I have been creating transformation with individuals and teams. And I am honored to be here with each of you, 4 men, girl dads. I'm a boy mom, so I have no idea the seats that you guys are in, literally none. I'd love for you all to take just a quick minute to introduce yourselves, and then we'll dive in. Who would like to go first? Whew, Shawn is taking the reins. DJ, introduce yourself.
Well, my name is DJ Colter. I've lived in Fargo Moorhead area for 22 years. I've been married for 21. I have 3 daughters. I have a daughter. My oldest is a sophomore at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. She's going into sales. She's getting a kind of a combo degree they have there where it's sales, marketing, and business management. So she's trying to get a summer internship. So if anyone knows anything, please help reach out to her. But then I have twin daughters. So is there any other twins in here? Yeah. You're a twin? Really? Yeah, that's cool. That's a different dynamic. So I have 15-year-old freshman twin daughters at Horace. So my wife's a teacher in the West Fargo School District. I own an insurance agency and some real estate stuff. And when Mel asked me to do this, I said, one of the biggest blessings, I always thought I wanted to have a boy, and always thought that would be, bring me the most joy, because I was raised with just me and my brother. And my 3 daughters, what they've taught me in life is some of the biggest blessings in the world. I'm sure these guys can all attest to that too. So anyway, looking forward to this time together.
Thanks, DJ.
Thank you. So Shawn Riley, I cause trouble for a living. And in that way, I own a venture studio. So we build companies of all sorts and sizes around the world. And for my family, in this sense, I have a daughter who is directly from my lineage. And then I also ended up raising both of my sisters, so at a very young age. So had custody of both my 2 brothers and my 2 sisters by the time I was 21. And so my daughter, who is now actually 21, is a graduate of NDSU with biochemistry and genetics and is a super STEM kid. She got a 36 on her ACTs in math and science, so is super math brain. Loves it.
Love it. Thanks, Shawn. Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave. See if this thing works. I guess some professional background, kind of piggyback what DJ started here. I moved back to Fargo from Minneapolis right out of college and promised my dad I'd help him out in the family business for a year. 18 years later, we sold the business. It was called Apario. And then I spent a couple years working for the buyer, running a site here in Fargo and in Arizona, agricultural technology, off-road rugged equipment technologies, that kind of thing. And then I parted ways with the buyer, took 100 days off with my girls to figure out what was next, and started doing some writing, and recently started a new company, AI software company, to help people who are the executor or administrators of estates to process all of the work that comes with a loved one's passing that you have to do legally. And it's a lot of work, and so I think there's a lot we can do to help people at a time where they're really grieving in their lives. I have 3 awesome girls, or at least 2 awesome girls and another girl, depending on the day that you ask me. I have a teenager who's about to round the corner on 15. That's a challenge. And then I've got a daughter who's 12 and a daughter who's 9. And I guess that's just a little about me. And Rob, you got to bring up the rear.
Thank you.
All right. I'm Robin Anderson. I've been married for almost 19 years. I have twin 12-year-old daughters, so they keep us busy along with the other things that I do. But Full-time, I work at Bobcat and business intelligence analyst, and then part-time too, I am a city commissioner with West Fargo. So happy to be here.
Thanks for letting us get to know you all a little bit better. DJ, you said that having girls was one of the greatest blessings. I'm curious, to get us started, would you guys share how becoming dads, specifically girl dads, changed your style of leadership? Anyone can start, not just you got the
So in my insurance agency, I have 10 employees. 8 of them are females. I have 2 in their 20s, 1 in their 30s, 140, 150, 160. So I have, a variety of women. So I have a house full of women at 4 and 2 female dogs at home. Then at my workplace, when you're a small business, you really get to know who you work with. I don't know if you guys work in a small business, but it's just different than working in a big corporate. So what I'm trying to get at here is that being a dad, I really feel, especially of daughters, the compassion and patience and understanding. And of course, I always try to solve things and help them, but just trying to love on them as much as I can. I know it's different than many of you have boys and girls, and it's so different raising them. But one thing I will say too is I don't know about you guys and your kids, but all 3 of my daughters are so different. Isn't it crazy? How all of our kids, I'm sure your boys too, all 3 of my girls are so different, and I have to love them all in different ways. Does that make sense? But why I brought up my workplace environment in dealing with the different generations, I see even the gals in my workplace personalities, but just, their different age, how they all handle encouragement and how that's needed on them too. So it's just, I'd say they both have helped me be both a better dad and also a teammate at work.
So we have about 120 companies under the venture studio of different sorts and sizes. And for the companies that are part of my personal portfolio, 81% of our executive team are women. And that's a lot higher than typical average. Now, I do a little bit of healthcare stuff, and healthcare is typically a little higher in women, but almost everything else I have is technology. And I have one of our companies that the entire executive team is women, and it's a tech company. So when I think of this kind of growing up with my sisters and my daughter and how that applied, I learned a lot about how men and women engage in risk very differently. And men, if there's a cliff here, we take a running run and we're off the cliff, and as we're falling, we're like, ooh, there's for the most part, traditionally men are just very, very comfortable with risk, where a woman will run up to the end of the cliff, stop, look, see if there's a bottom, call their friends, have a group conversation, and go, hey, can we survive the fall, right? And that difference has made it so that most of our leadership engagement of this is that we'll have a lot of women integrators, and in our teams, it's almost 3 to 1, where our integrator groups are women-led. Our vision teams are closer to 50-50. But the integrator side, so those operational leaders, tend to be much more dominantly women executives, because they'll stop, they'll ask questions, whereas what we see is men are arrogant as individuals, women are arrogant in a group. And we are much more successful being able to move a company forward and coaching that company to move forward if there's at least some women in that executive team to be able to kind of add that second thought processing.
So for me, when I had my daughter, relatively impatient person, and kind of as they grew up, I've had to kind of develop that patience, and I feel like that's kind of what's shaped my leadership more, is being able to sit back and just kind of, listen to the girls talk about their different, things going on they have in life. I don't necessarily always understand it, but I try to help them out. But it's more just trying to, take a step back and be patient. So.
It's a good chance I learned a lot more about being great in a professional capacity from my kids than I have from anybody else. And it's amazing what you can learn, from very, very small people, or how they challenge you to grow and become a better version of yourself. I think I'm not unusual from a guy's perspective in saying that before I was a dad, I was really pretty bad at relationships. I wasn't particularly good at connecting to people. And if you think about what's really going to make you successful in a business or professional sense, it's going to be relationships are the bedrock of building a small business. They're how you build relationships with, suppliers, vendors, partners. No matter how you look at business, the bridge between, struggle and success is going to be to perform on a relationship. And I was really bad at relationships because I came into relationships with this expectation that relationships were largely a transactional exercise. Because when you're a little boy, like, your friends are more measuring sticks than they are relationships in a lot of ways. Like, you surround yourself with little guys that you can, like, show out that you're better than them, and if you get the right little guys, like, you're just enough better than them that you're kind of leading the group, and it's like, it's great, right? And then you come to a place where it turns out relationships aren't about proving your superiority. They're not about getting somewhere and advance your goals. They're about something else entirely. And I learned that from a pile of little girls. And so, and then when I started looking at what that changed in my workplace relationships and what that changed in my business relationships, it was the change that created an incredible transformation. And it was, wasn't anything that changed in the business, right? It was everything about what changed in me. And that perspective all came from parenting. And I don't think that it would have been the same if I was a parent of all boys. Can't sanity check that, right? But with all girls, I feel like that demanded some growth in me that I wouldn't have found, otherwise.
There can be a lot of tension between balancing being a parent and leading a business or being in business. And Ashley talked about the margins in life during the previous panel. How do we as women who are what would you suggest for women who are trying to balance being parents and showing up for our kids and also trying to be at all the things and doing all of the things? What would be some things that you gentlemen would recommend?
I can snake draft this. We'll go back in the other direction now. So things not to do. Don't compartmentalize. Don't put work over here and, family life over here and try to build like a really large barrier between the two where work and family are separate things. Like, don't confuse yourself or delude yourself into thinking that whatever is going on in your professional life that is really getting at you, that is kind of inside you, kind of nibbling away, that you can like leave that at the door and then walk in as an entirely different person than the person who put the car in park. You should try. Like, when you put the car in park, when you're carrying that baggage from work, like you should really like pause a moment, take a breath, and try to leave that behind and come in and be fully present with your kids. Not just presence in person, like corporally, like physically, but present totally emotionally and psychologically. That takes an exercise to try to do. At least it did for me. But when you come in and you are carrying that, share it with your family, share it with your kids. Tell them about and they say, how was your day? Don't go, good. Tell them, like, actually my day had a giant bucket of suck involved with it. And I want to tell you all about it and how I'm struggling with it and how I'm going to get through the suck. And I want you to share how you think about it, how you feel about it. And the answers are adorable and sometimes really insightful. But we can teach your kids a lot about sharing our struggles instead of trying to keep them away from our struggles. Kids become more resilient and become better, more awesome women when we teach them how through struggle, and we do that a lot through story, through sharing our own. And so some of the mistakes I made was trying to keep those things apart for too long, and then finding that my family life and my personal life became a lot better when I was a lot more transparent about the struggles that were involved, and making rather than keeping my work and my life, so to speak, apart. It was really about integrating them and making them one thing.
So you did a lot of talking. I'm not a man of many words. I have few words, but so that's great. I think to kind of elaborate a little bit and kind of where my thoughts are in this is kind of have that support system or be, from a husband's perspective, I want to be there for my wife as support. And finding that support will help. Like there's been some instances where, she works part-time. She wants to go and do some stuff outside of the house that's, beyond kind of the work stuff, spend time with some of her work friends. And, I need to, someone needs to be there with the kids and help support that. And so kind of, make it a little bit more concise, I guess, is have support system to help with that. And open communication is key.
Thank you.
So just as was mentioned about this aspect of don't attempt to keep these things separate, right? So we've been talking about work-life balance for years and years and years. It's the wrong term. Work-life harmony is the actual environment, right? And when we think of these things, so when we have men or women, because this is a very open aspect of how people are doing childcare today, right? I have just as many men say, hey, I got to go pick up the kids after the basketball game as have women nowadays. That's great. Go pick up the kids, right? And they're like, hey, I don't want to get on this phone call because the kids are yelling in the back seat. That's fine. And if you choose to get on and they're yelling in the back seat, that's cool too. When we integrate these aspects, whenever a pet or a child shows up on the video on the Teams meeting, I mean, that's like a celebration in the group. We're like, okay, stop. You got to introduce the child, or show us the animal. Bring them into the conversation. And this is part of that in today's world is why are we pretending that family life doesn't exist and work life is separate? I mean, that's not how our universe works and hasn't worked in a long time. But somehow we keep running into these so-called experts that tell us keep them completely separate. The world doesn't work that way. Don't bother, right? Have that integration. Be accepting of that integration. And our leaders are taught that, right? Accept that people have dual lives and that's part of everything we do. So bringing that together is a huge component.
I love that harmony. That's so true. I'm sure we all go through ups and downs. I was thinking about my oldest and what she's watched of me, and I've failed a lot in this area at times over my 21 years being a small business owner, but I try to be as real and open and honest with them and talk to them about that. And I think the most important thing is wherever your kids are at in what they're trying and what they're trying to do, whether boy or girl, is supporting them, but especially girls. My oldest called me this week, Dad, I want to study abroad next spring. Okay? I could hear my wife say no, and my first reaction is, hey, I'm supposed to protect her, right? As her dad, I'm supposed to protect her, but I'm also, this is who she is. I need to let her fly and figure this out. So I just encourage her, like, hey, figure out what's it going to cost, figure out the dynamics of it, go talk to the fight, like get more details, figure it out, and I'll support you. And is that what I want for her? No. But I'm not going to, if that's her dream, I'm not going to crush it. And all of our kids, I don't know about you guys, but I'm 48 years old. I grew up in the 90s that I was expected to go to college and get a degree, and that's not all the world anymore, right? So one of my twins, I think, is going to be a nurse, talked about being a nurse, and she's this. The other one, she doesn't give a flying you-know-what about anything, and she's talked about, she might just want to, Dad, I might just want to cut hair. Well, my wife her parents raised her that, no, you got to go get a 4-year degree. Is that the world we live in anymore? If that's, that's where I think we just being open-minded and so trying to love and support them and always asking questions. I'm trying to do a better job with my daughters of asking questions and getting them to think. Just reflect, think, what's, thinking ahead, what about this, what about that? I think the more we ask questions, and that's so healthy for them in the future because, this is funny, guys. You'll get a kick out of this. My oldest that's at Nebraska wants to study abroad. I said, how are you going to pay for this? Well, me and my friend, we found online a spray tan kit, and we're going to go around. We've talked to all the sororities, and we're going to go around and start a business and spray tan everyone to pay. And I'm like, you know what? That's great. Go for it. If you figure it out as you go. So would I've ever wanted that or thought about that? No, but I think the best thing as parents is that we got to, especially with our daughters, think it's okay if they think big and let them dream and go, and just try to put the the guardrails up to help along the way.
Dave, Shawn, as you two were sharing, I was thinking, and then you said the word duality. So often we keep things separate, right? Like that whole question really was about keeping work and our family life separate. But the more we try to keep separate, the more there's tension. And if we embrace duality, we're actually probably more in the moment that you were talking about. Melanie has talked about women being equally powerful, yet distinctly different. Same with men. So long, we have been fighting to overcome, right? We have been fighting to prove, we as women. What do you see in us as leaders and as humans that we could just toss all of that striving, all of that pushing, all of the duality to the side and just be? I'm curious, Shawn, you're ready.
So we focus on these outward traits that are observable traits, right? We do this all the time right now. When you somehow believe that diversity outward reflection instead of an inward reflection, right? Diversity is truly an aspect of diversity of thought, diversity of experience. It is not about whether you're black or white or male or female or any variety of any of those things. We do this all the time, and I have this gentleman who I worked with at Mayo Clinic for years. His name is Mohammed. He's a Somalian man, 6'3", very, very, very black. And he gets pulled into the diversity committee, and they ask him to come in and sit down, and they're like, well, we want you here because what he looks like and what his name is, right? And he looks around and he goes, I was born and raised in Rochester, Minnesota. I speak the same English all of you do. I've never been to Somalia. I've never done any of these things. What the hell is diversity in your mind? And I loved it, right? I mean, I was just bouncing off the walls. And he reset this in that conversation at Mayo. And this is kind of where we think about this here. We get focused on outward traits instead of the real things that really empower people. And if you look at where we are today in 2025 and the advent of technology and the advent of complete and comprehensive cultural change that we're looking at over the next 20 to 30 years, the real core things that we need to think about are growth mindset, courage, curiosity, and humility. And whether it's boys, girls, families, anybody from any background, if you do not have a growth mindset, good luck surviving the next 5 years, because your job is changing. Because anybody here who doesn't think you've been hit by AI yet, you're about to be, right? Anybody got a cell phone in your pocket? Everybody did before. That's an artificial intelligence-driven system that's changing the world, right? The aspects of courage. Courage has been mentioned multiple times here today. If you want to sit in your chair and watch the world go by and complain about it, good luck, right? You have to be courageous to stand up and step forward, right? That aspect of curiosity. If you can't ask a question, right? I won't hire people who don't ask me questions. You come in and you've got PhD in XYZ and you graduated at MIT and Stanford and you don't ask me a question, too bad, you failed, not getting a job, right? Those aspects, though, have to be reflected through humility. And that's part of what is a core component that I see that women have an innate advantage over most men just by default, right? Men get patted on the head for being big and boisterous and jumping up and down at things. Women typically don't. So this aspect of reflective humility is something that can be an empowerment for women that men have to learn how to do, that women will do more naturally. And those are kind of the core traits that I see to really be able to push this and make that complete change going forward.
So when we talk about striving, there's healthy striving, there's unhealthy striving, and I think that when it comes to the striving that we think about and we fear a lot of times, it comes from what I might kind of call like the tyrannical they. Like, what are they going to think? How are they going to feel? What will they say, right? And, when you really sit down and say, hey, Robin, who are they? We're like, well, them, right? We don't even people. We imagine this fictional group of people, and then like we let this imaginary group of people start having like real and substantial and impacts on our actual lives. They're not even people that we love and trust and people from which we take advice. We imagine this phantom group, and then this phantom group starts jerking our lives around. And I think the first thing when we start talking about striving is Wayne Dyer's he's passed away, but he was this self-help dude, and he had this amazing analogy about oranges and orange juice. He'd hold this orange up and he'd say, you know what happens if you squeeze this, what's going to come out? So orange juice, right? No matter what you do, no matter what you try, no matter how hard you squeeze or what tricks you pull, you're not going to squeeze this and get lemon juice or grapefruit juice or gold. The only thing that's going to come out of this orange juice, or this orange, is orange juice. Why? Because that's what's inside. And so what happens to us, right, when we're squeezed? What's going to come out? Our anxiety, our fears, our doubts. Like when we feel the pressure of what's going on in our workplace and we're striving to try to get somewhere, like the things that we're really struggling with are the things that are kind of coming out from inside of us, because like that's what's really there. And so if you want a setting for me, because I struggled like mightily with this was a huge problem for me in my life. And how did I get past it? A little bit of help from my girlfriend Victoria, maybe a lot of help from my girlfriend Victoria. But at the end of the day, where that was really going was me changing and becoming more clear about what it was that I wanted for myself. Getting clear about where I really wanted to go, like setting aside the tyrannical they and then doing the reflection, introspection to understand like, what do I really want? Not because I think someone else might want it for me, because there's generally a set of expectations, but because what I really freaking want this for myself. And when that became super clear to me, then it became really, really easy to be authentic. And authenticity is a freaking superpower. People really get behind authentic people, male, female, black, white, big, small, people that are like roaringly authentic and unapologetically them. People get behind those people really fast. And so if you want to go someplace professionally, I think the first place you go is not out. You don't look around. You don't try to strive or set somebody else's expectations. You go in as deep as you can possibly go and decide like who you want to be for your own sake. And then like practice living in that. And I think once you let go of that, like the striving's kind of gone because you've got your own direction. And I think striving a lot of times the unhealthy version that comes from these things we invent, for ourselves. And as Robin observed, I'm going to give a lot of quarter-sized answers to nickel-sized questions, and so I'll try to keep my responses to minimum.
I love it. You're doing great. DJ, Robin, do you want to share? How do you see women equally powerful yet distinctly different? And what is the benefit to your organization to having women, DJ?
Yeah, well, it's funny because yesterday in my office, on my L10 team are me and two of my other female leaders, and we're dealing with one of our male employees. And I just sat back and let them empower a tough conversation, and I was so proud of them. And last night I'm walking at the gym, and I sent them a text at just how proud I was of them, of how they just did the best they could with the situation, how authentic they were and real. And I think that's the biggest, if I could give any male business leader, anyone that's leading an organization in any realm, a group of people, is just constant encouragement is the key. How can you make a tough situation and make it get as much positive out of a situation? And just getting people to believe in them. I know you guys might not believe this, but yesterday I had a gal reach out to me in her mid-20s about a month ago saying, I want to come work for you. I'm like, I don't have a job. Why do you want to work for insurance? No one ever says that. Like, what's going on? What's wrong with you? And she kept bugging, she kept pursuing. And long story short, I got a friend of a friend said, yeah, she's coming in, made a connection. She came in yesterday with a few of my staff and just wanted to kind of learn how our business works, how the industry. And we just said, yeah, you can come in and job shadow. That's, if this is what you really want. She sent me the nicest text last night about the hours in your office, and no one, I felt like never believed in me like that. And I'm like, whoa, what we're put on this, God is earth to encourage and love on and help as many people as we can. And when you do that, good things happen. I've never, ever been in a situation where I've tried to help people as much as possible. Yeah, you get burned. Things don't always work out. I get that. But at the end of the day, usually really neat things come from situations where you're genuinely trying to help. So when we talk about women in the workplace and the women that work for me, is I just try to love them and encourage them as much, and it's everyone, even the guys, but I know that how much that means to them, and I see that.
You don't have to answer. We don't have to answer every question, and everyone can have that free pass. Struggle is key to building resilience. And I think sometimes as men, you know where I'm going here, kind of, don't you, Dave? It could be easy to step in and rescue or be that protector. And I know as a mom, rescuing my children has been the greatest decision I've ever given them. How can we help each other struggle well in business and move through the struggle to get to where that resilience is something we can lean on ourselves?
I'm a slow thinker, so.
Oh, yeah, then pass the mic. You let that marinate. It is good.
So struggles, and I look at things as opportunities, and when I see my daughters struggle with something, I kind of tap into that patience that I'm still working to develop, that they've led me down that path of, but trying to help allow them to continue that struggle to figure somewhere, if it's something as simple as building a Lego set or something that they want to do, right? But letting them know that I'm there to help them if they need it. We've had some struggles in the city as well, and kind of as a commissioner, it's one of those things where you're kind of at a higher level and let the folks do their thing. But sometimes you do have to kind of intervene and interject, ask questions, but let them move through things. Sometimes ask some questions, but you're there if they need guidance, kind of thing. And I don't mean that from a position of power necessarily, but just a being available for someone if they're struggling through something. Because sometimes that's all it takes is if they know that someone's there, then they can move through it easier.
Thank you.
So order is great, but chaos creates. The reality is that without some chaos in your life, you don't personally evolve. You've got to have, so you have something to overcome and become greater than. I like to put a little chaos into a team, because a team that becomes too comfortable is dying, right? They're not evolving anymore. So when we're pushing an organization, we're pushing a group, male or female, I got to throw some chaos in there. When it comes to creating that resiliency, so like my daughter growing up never got the question, how was your day, from me. She got, what was the best question you asked today? And that's what I would present her, right, was what was the best question you asked today? And she always knew she had to ask a question at some point. She had to be curious. But it created this aspect that when she would bump into chaos, chaos is more normalized, right? Oh, okay, something happened today, right? I'm one of these guys, I live in chaos all day, every day. So my car breaks down today, whatever. Airplane falls on my head, whatever, all normal stuff. But that's something that most people in today's world don't have. They don't have a ton of chaos around them. And you have to create the aspect of it to help create the component of knowing when to deal with it. Because when you hit business, and you get in that small business or that large business or that enterprise or wherever you're going, chaos is an absolute. You're going to bump into it. And you've got to be able to create that aspect where the generation growing knows how to bump into it. And I even do this with our teams. One of our lead integrators, she's watching this session downstairs because she's seen me talk too many times. With her team, we pitch this at her, and like, here, I'm the chaos monkey today, and it's an official thing. Here you go, I'm chaos monkey, here you go. Here's your thing, go adapt to it, I'm gonna leave. Because sooner or later, something's gonna come that we don't control that chaos. And that helps them to be able to adapt, and it helps them become very, very resilient in their teams.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're gonna go to chaos a little bit. Some women in work have fears around the death of DEI. And this is obviously a very touchy subject and is not a gotcha moment for anyone on this stage at all. What can we do as a community to help inform or support women who are feeling unseen, unheard, or are experiencing fear around this topic?
I'll dive in with something unpopular.
I love it.
I think DEI disappearing is a great thing. And that's not maybe gonna land surprisingly maybe with people like, whoa, DEI, like how can losing DEI be a good thing? I think the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion is a really good thing. People should want more diverse teams because more diverse teams perform better in the way that Shawn was talking about diversity. And that's true, hard stop. Every study you can grab onto indicates, yes, that is true. So DEI, diversity is good, equity is good, inclusion is good, but the corporate manifestation of these DEI initiatives, in my personal experience and the experience of people I know, was really bad. Because what happened with these initiatives is that people would push demographic targets to a manager and say, you need to hire these people instead of those people. The people need to fit a certain demographic box. And a lot of times those demographic boxes were not aligned with the industry or the community. I was part of a DEI initiative where we were trying to improve our racial diversity in a factory from 3% to 10% in a community with 1% racial diversity. Where are these people coming from? The recruiting organization isn't supporting people and importing people to this rural community to work in this factory. Like, you've set the managers up for failure. They can't hire anybody. Now the team's all resentful of this initiative because they can't get the staff that they need to hit the targets that we're actually trying to get for shareholders' value. So we're losing in achieving our actual business objectives because we've put an initiative in the way that we can't accomplish and not given the people the tools to accomplish them. And by the way, while we've been doing it, we haven't educated the people about why we're actually doing it, that diversity wins, and why that's important, and actually got to the root of how we're going to succeed because we are more diverse teams in our experiences, in our thoughts. So we use gender and race as a tool for believing that we're getting diversity of thought and diversity of perspective. But as Shawn indicated, that's not always true either. And so we missed the mark, I think, on DEI to a very large extent in the way that we tried to implement it. And so if your fear is we're losing DEI, and I feel like as a result I am losing something, I would say I don't think that you are. Because what was happening is that people weren't getting the hires made, or in some cases people were hiring people that they didn't feel were like the right people because they needed somebody, and at least this person fit the box that would let them get the hire made. But then the whole team felt like that wasn't the right person for the job. In some cases, that was true. And then the new person comes into a work environment disadvantaged from the start because the whole team is resenting that they didn't necessarily want to hire that person from the jump off. And that's not a good environment for the shareholder, for the company, for the new person that has changed their life to come to this new company and is starting with people staring daggers at them because that wasn't the hire that they wanted. All that is bad. And so I think the manifestation of DEI and the way that it showed up in a lot of places was really counterproductive. And we missed the mark as a community because businesses like to do the easy thing. Like, if you want to change culture, in an organization. A lot of times what people do is they love to use policy as vehicle to change culture. I'm going to stuff metrics down your throat, believing that if I shove your face in these metrics, then what that's going to lead to is change. Because policies are easy, practices are easy, processes are easy, but most of business is about behavior, and behavior is hard to change. It's a more time-consuming thing to get at. And so, for me, I would encourage you not to be afraid of DEI going away, because I think that the right organizations that value diversity, that value equity, that value inclusion, I mean, more than half my team, my leadership team, was racial minorities and women and foreign racial minorities at that. I had an extremely diverse team. We were super successful, not because anybody made me do it, but because that's what brought me the right team, and I knew that. And so I could go on at length. We probably don't have the time, and you probably don't necessarily want to hear that much from me about it, but I guess my encouragement would be, if you feel like you've lost something important as DEI is going away, I would question that belief, because I don't think that you're losing anything, really. I think that you're gaining freedom in people making the hires that they want to make, and perspective. And if you are the kind of people that are in this room so awesome people can't ignore you, then you're going to find the right opportunities, DEI or otherwise.
Thanks, Dave.
I hope not one of you sitting in here does not get an opportunity in your career because you're a female, or I think of my 3 daughters, that I don't want that to happen to any of them. And if they were to ask me, what would you do? What would I encourage them to do? I would encourage them to say something and stand up for themselves and saying it's wrong, that culture and workplace. And if it's not going to change, would you stay there? No, go to a place that will use your talents and your abilities for who you are and your skill set that you have and what you want to do in your career. Get out of there, but stand up, say something. And I will encourage my 3 daughters, and I hope all of you sitting in this room, you have too many God-given gifts and talents to not use them, and find where you can. But stand up, because, I don't know if that'll ever change, that workplace or that owner or that management or whatever, but that's the only way any type of change is going to happen, right? So stand up for yourself, say how you feel, and if it doesn't change, find a place that there are great work cultures out there that do not have that type of culture of not hiring the right person no matter what you are.
Amen, DJ.
Our time together is quickly coming to a close. So before I turn it over for Q&A, let's have a rapid fire question. And rapid fire, that means like 1-2 sentences tops, okay? So what is the number one thing you want your daughters to know when they enter the workforce?
Give your best.
Be themselves.
Just grit.
Patience and authenticity.
All right, we have 2 minutes for questions. Who has the first question? Rayleigh. Oh, hot mic coming your way.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I love hearing from girl dads. One thing I want to ask you all about is confidence. So it's kind of been just a little more prevalent in women, I guess I would say in general, and I see it in my teenage daughter when it comes to sports, when it comes to interacting with classmates, that sort of thing. So what would you say to your daughters when it comes to confidence and just seeing the difference that it sometimes has between men and women?
I don't know that I say a lot about confidence to them, but personally I see different levels of confidence in my daughters, and to me it comes down to encouraging them and reinforcing what they do well to help build that. And so that's the approach that I take with it, with building, trying to work on their confidence.
I think confidence comes through struggle. I think you've got to struggle and succeed in order to build confidence in yourself, the confidence that you can do it. And so I think in the area of resilience, resilient people that are supported and pushed to achieve goals and get wins and move in the direction that they want, they become a lot more confident. And so I think that as they, for my daughters, it's about helping them identify something that they want to do and then holding them both accountable and supporting them as much as I possibly can in getting to that place.
Typically, the lack of confidence comes from the belief in failure, right? And I coach a completely different aspect on failure. Failure is good. Failure is healthy. Failure allows for growth. Failure allows for learning. And if somebody fails and they get yelled at, confidence goes down. People fail and say, what did you learn? Right? And that's how we approach it. Anytime there's a failure, it's point blank, what did you learn today? And allows people to go and do it again.
I notice that right, with my daughters, the fear, we talk a lot about the fear of failure. And why don't you have, like, if they're crying or like, what's going on? Like, tell me why you don't have confidence. Like, what do we got to do to help you get your confidence? And then when I see them have success, like, or I see, man, look at how confident you are. Look at, but it's okay to have, when your daughter's out there crying on a state, in a state tournament, and it's on statewide TV and all that, and she's out there crying because she failed or something, and she's 15 years old, and you're trying to protect her, but also it's like afterwards putting your arm around her and saying, okay, it's okay, you're going to learn from this. It's okay. Like, it's okay to fail. You missed 2 free throws in the state championship. It's okay. Like, don't, I think sometimes too, my daughters try to be perfectionists, and they think they have to look this way or feel this way, or everything needs to look, and it's like, it's okay. But also I think, what do we got to do? What can I do to help you get your confidence back? I mean, how many times have we asked our kids that? And a lot of times they don't know what to say, but at least it gets them thinking, right? Or what do we got to do to get, because you have the ability, back to is simply telling them you love them and you believe in them. How powerful that is consistently. When I've done that with my girls, they tell me, Dad, I know you believe in me. That's really the most important thing.
DJ, Shawn, Dave, Robin, thank you for sharing. Thank you all for your time and attention. It is time for us to transition now to the next phase of our day. So let's give these gentlemen a quick round of applause.
Thank you so much for joining us in our mission to remind women of who they are, how to professionalize their strengths, and step into their purpose. To learn more about She Overcomes and our Becoming Bold cohorts, you can go to sheovercomes.co. To learn more about our virtual community, the Ezer Collective, go to ezer.disco.co. And finally, to learn more about my book, Irreverent, a memoir of reckless hope, unexpected love, and finding my voice, you can find that at melaniemichelle.co/books. Until next time, Overcomer, it's time for you to find your purpose, chase it with courage, and step into your unique gifts. Thank you.